Hello, YouTube. This is Ewan Spence and ESC Insight calling. D.G.T. Off and on. Still not sure what it all stands for, but it is this year's Eurovision song from Romania. It's a good afternoon, it's a good morning, it's a good evening. Theodor Andrei is singing for Romania this year at the Eurovision Song Contest. He's taking his song, D.G.T, off and on to Liverpool. And before that, we're going to review the song here. Myself, AJ Clay and Alice Beverden-Palmer this time around on Jukebox Jury. The full show is up on our podcast, escinsight.com. What we have here is just the highlights of our review of Romania.
He's a disaster twink of this year, surely. Like he looks adorable. He's kind of got that nerdy vibe. The staging from the national final, I seem to remember, was pretty awful. There was some ladies gyrating a bit and some chairs, and it was very Tesco value strip club. So whatever he does for Liverpool needs to be much better than that. But song-wise, I don't mind it. It's, you know, he's got quite a good voice. It's gritty in places. He can hit the high notes just about. There's a bit of sass to it. It's not bad.
It's just not for me. Initially, I was like, oh, have we got a bit of a cabaret vibe? Is this a bit arty? Can I go with this? And as it continued, the answer became no, I cannot. And that's just my musical taste, I guess. But it felt a bit forced to me, a bit kind of pretentious, I suppose. But I am often wrong when it comes to Eurovision. I rarely vote the same way as the majority, so perhaps I will be surprised on the night.
Nobody is ever wrong about Eurovision, Alice. You just make predictions that have fallen out of the wrong universe.
Oh God, the multiverses of Eurovision. How many multiverses would that be?
The Eurovision extended universe.
But staying back to this universe, I think, look, there was one where he was a guest performer at one of the other national finals where he was out on stage solo with a purple suit on and just, you know, looking confident about the song. Once all the trappings that we'd seen in the national final had been taken away, it's just like, yeah, we got a good performer here. It's a young performer, so it's still quite difficult to really command the stage. And it's just like, oh, okay, right, that's what you want to do with the song. So does that mean that's what you wanted to do in the national final, but you couldn't bring them with you to this show? Or what I suspect is that the production team were looking for something a little bit edgy camp, and they've went with this one, and they've brought in the elements that you would expect from someone who's taller, wears a lot more tight leather, you know, whoever the Romanian Burt Reynolds is in the 21st century. That staging would have worked for him with the same song. It's, once you see this with nerdcore and geek shall inherit the earth vibes, it becomes a nicer song because it becomes more approachable. Staging, in my mind, should always be used to supplement the core message of a song. And my problem with Romania this year is in the national final, it detracts from the core message of the song. What's going to turn up in Liverpool?
And that's interesting that you mention other performances because, so for context this year, I've had a lot less time to dig into national finals. I only watched Melodifestivalen. You get a kind of purer experience. You get much closer to the people who will be watching it just on the TV for the first time. And those are the people who are phoning up to vote. And those are the people who will decide who wins. So actually, it just makes you realise how brutal a competition Eurovision is, because if he doesn't turn up in that lovely purple suit, if he does bring the gyrating ladies and it doesn't connect, that's his one shot. So it's interesting that you seem a lot more sympathetic towards it because you've seen alternative staging, and I've had to take it on kind of face value, and therefore it didn't connect. And I think as fans, I think I often get very indignant on behalf of songs or artists who may be more of a grower or who may have a backstory that doesn't translate. So I guess that's a useful note for me, that I may have missed something with Romania.
When I watched the national final, I just thought, this is a mess. And as you were saying, Eunice, it just feels that there's a mismatch with the performer and the song, or as the producers wanted it to be, which I think is a real shame. Depending on the staging, maybe. I'm going to give it maybe.
And I also think it's because he's a younger performer. I think an older performer would actually have the clout and the wherewithal to actually stand up and go, no, I know you've got a lot of people working on this and a lot of money, but no. Given that I was swithering and given that you were swithering, AJ, we're going to amalgamate our maybe and our miss to have that sort of kind of, I'd like to get to a maybe. So I'm going to say miss, but we're aggregating our two.
It's a miss from me, I'm afraid, though I am more sympathetic having heard you guys plead the case.
Romania's entry into Eurovision there, given the review treatment from myself, AJ, and Alice. More reviews, just the countries here on YouTube. More reviews in the full-length podcast, along with a bundle of interviews and news at escinsight.com. Ta-ra for now. You've been listening to the highlights of Jukebox Jury as we preview the Eurovision Song Contest 2023. Find out more and listen to our podcast, www.escinsight.com.